the agenda up here as
good,
well.
okay.
Yes.
She's calling the meeting.
All right, so we're going to get going? No. Do we know if our other guy's coming?
He's gonna call in.
I just
Mike?
tried to call him and he doesn't answer, so
Michael,
hopefully he
right?
just calls back.
Okay.
So Mike couldn't be here today. We're gonna try and get him on the line. Also, we're gonna do the approval of the minutes next meeting. Well, let's do a roll call, actually.
Mr. Sasso,
Here?
Mr. Evans,
Here.
Mr. Los,
Here?
and Mr. Robinette is not here today, and Ms. Tanja McCoy,
Here.
and I am Kelsey Mack.
And I'm not used to you calling me Mr. Sasso. That's weird.
So
All right,
with
we're
that,
gonna-
Mike may be able to join us via the phone. We're gonna do approval of last meeting's minutes next meeting, because the person who wrote those up wasn't here today, so we didn't have a copy of those, and she was off a couple days.
Okay.
So with that, we're gonna move on to item C, which is review current ordinance related to e-bike, scooters, and micromobility devices, and continue the process of making recommendations for the commission. And today we have a police representative, guest speaker, to discuss speed and education in schools. That was two of the items that we were still looking at as ways to help us regulate these e-bikes within the city of Cocoa Beach. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys to start the conversation.
If I could just start, guys, couple of things, order of business things. I'm not going to be here the rest of the month, so if Mike can make it, great. Please meet and wrap things up. But if not, I'll be back in the first week of June. So just to let you all know, Tanja.
Yes.
I think you and I talked about that already. I'd like to be there to wrap it up, but if we can get it wrapped up today, great.
Yes.
And I think I want to thank our cops for being here, because we want to make sure whatever we do, you all have a chance to review it and look at it, and please advise on it. We need your input. Okay, so thank you for that.
Tony, on that note, if I could weigh in, I'm also out on the 15th. I suspect we'll be canceling the meeting on the 15th.
Yes.
Okay.
So, we probably have at most one more meeting, and that's just to look at language, once you guys finish out today. If you guys want to meet to look at language, or just have me send it out, and then I can take it forward to the commission.
I wouldn't mind reviewing. Would we be holding things up if we did it like the first or second week of June?
I don't think that would be a big holdup.
Will you guys be all right with
Can we
that?
do it via email?
It's up to you guys.
Let's try to do it electronically. We might not need to meet.
Okay, all right.
So for now, once I get the language after today's meeting, the plan will be for me to prepare the language, send it out. If you guys feel comfortable with it via email, we'll keep it in that format. If you guys want to meet, you'll respond and let me know you want to meet, and we'll have that meeting the first week of June.
Okay.
All right.
And just to kind of review real quick, what we've been talking about were speed limits, and we're going to look at other things to kind of fine tune it, but speed limits, e-bike / other e-vehicles, access to all sidewalks. We looked at on downtown Minutemen, probably the 2-block section, doing the Chevron bike things out in the roadway, but still allowing bikes on the sidewalks, the 12-mile-an-hour speed limit, passing on the left with an audible signal of some sort, and pedestrians having the right of way. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, and education, not just in the school, but to folks doing rentals. And I think we should also really consider anything we can to get that information out to the public. Our email system, especially initially the first year, on a quarterly basis, to remind everybody. some signage is probably going to be needed, and maybe even some of the downtown businesses coming up with some kind of a flyer to give to businesses that they can either put up or talk to the folks at work, because some of these folks are using e-bikes to get to and from work. So for the folks working there, and especially in the restaurants, and any other way that we can communicate that out there, social media, et cetera. So, and then the other thing we talked about was to, make sure that the police have this, review it, and any revisions to revisit those revisions and change them. But also, I'd suggested, and I don't know if we got there or not, to kind of give this about a year and see how it goes. And then if anything's not working, to bring it back and either to the commission or to this group or another group and revisit what's not working so we can try and fix it.
A couple things on the education part. Did you mention through the school system as well?
Yes,
Okay.
and I think that's one of the things we were talking about having the police do.
Okay. I'd be okay if we revisited it prior to a year. I mean, a year can work, but it could be shorter. But
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, if there's I think the city staff and the police will know if there's an issue, if there's a problem, right, and let us know, and then if need be, we can come back and do it. Or staff and with the police and the commission may be able to just tweak it if it's something minor. But if it's something need to look at the whole process, I think we'd be happy to come back and help out.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I think we definitely need to give it some time, because we want to give it time for the community to be aware, as well as the changes to start to take effect. So we don't want to come back too soon, because we need to see changes take effect.
Right. And I might add, I was having this conversation with my wife just this weekend, that no matter what we do, especially with this, I mean, it's almost everything that happens in the city, as we all know, but especially this, there's going to be, no matter what we do, if we got rid of e-bikes or said everybody just go ride them, do whatever you want, there's going to be all kinds of complaints on social media. So just, we all need to be prepared for that. Some of it might be some positive, good, ideas, but a lot of it's just going to be a bunch of crap, screaming and hollering, why do we do this? And we should have done something different. But we should be aware of that. And I don't do social media, but I would suggest that all those that do and hear it, the good parts, let us know, and maybe there's, we can do a better job with it. So, having said that, I think maybe it's time to move on to the
Guest speaker.
yes. There we go. Thank you.
So that was a great segue into one of our biggest questions was, what would it look like to have some speed regulation on the sidewalk of an e-bike? How would police be able to enforce such a thing? Could you enforce such a thing?
Okay. Well, good afternoon.
And that's 12 miles an hour, by the way, is what we were recommending.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. Wes Mullins, Deputy Police Chief. Sergeant Jackie Hughes, she's our Community Relations Officer as well. Specifically with regards to enforcement, it's like everything else with us right now. Is it possible to regulate speed? Yes, it is possible. We have handheld radar units that can specifically point out an individual or a car as they approach. I haven't heard that we're not able to do that with a bike or an e-bike for speed. It would be an interesting endeavor. I've never heard or seen of it done, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been done. Regulating speed in that way does present a challenge for us. Most of the people who use the e-bikes, challenges in a few ways. One, it's a challenge because, we frequently deal with people who think it's their right to do whatever they want. And it's a very difficult, charge for us to explain to them that 1 month they're able to go 20 miles an hour because the bike is allowed to go 20 miles an hour and the governor stops it at 20, or how come I can't go as fast as this? We just run into that kind of stuff all the time. I can't tell you that we have the staffing to handle e-bike enforcement effectively as I would like, but we could certainly start the process. Do we have the capability of regulating speed, or at least detecting speed? Yes, we do. We have radar units that are laser detected, and we can pinpoint from a distance who's going what speed. But just understand what that means, right? I mean, it means that from a liability perspective, what do we do at that point? Do we stop them? Do we stand out in front of them? What if they don't stop? Do we chase them? Do we not chase them? Right? These are things, we would not chase them. We don't chase motorcycles for that reason, right? We don't want to harm anybody or for the motorcyclists to get harmed, so we don't chase motorcycles on speeding violations at all for that reason. So I just want you guys to understand it, and I'm sure that you do, right? But when it comes to enforcement, there's enforcement within the four corners of this that says what we can enforce, and then there's our policies where we just want to look out for the best interest of the citizens and not harm as many people as we can, if that makes any sense as well. Yes, sir. Mr.
Yeah.
Sasso.
Chief, let me ask you, and I understand exactly what you're saying, and this is kind of, we've discussed this, and I think we understand this as well. Obviously our main priority is to make the riders and everybody else safe.
Yes, sir.
Would it, and we're looking primarily, going up and down A1A on the wider sidewalks where there's fewer pedestrians than others, if somebody's going faster, but they're being safe. Honestly, I don't think that's a concern. What we're concerned about is congested areas in the neighborhoods, maybe on Minuteman. Would it be easier if we talked about reckless driving or reckless riding? Would that give you more leeway to, as you're walking patrols downtown, go, hey, hang on a minute, you need to kind of take it easy down here?
Short answer, yes, it would make it easier, but longer answer, and that would require more thought, is what does reckless mean? Do you have something for that? Please.
I actually want to just add a few things in here. As far as my knowledge goes and what I could research, e-bikes do not have speedometers. So therefore, we're enforcing something that they are unable to tell what speed they're doing. If we start to go into reckless categories, there would be things about them weaving in and out of traffic. Now with a vehicle, they would be required with certain standards to use blinkers and such, which are not required on e-bikes. So when we start going into reckless, how are we defining that? Because the definition is not going to be the same as it would be for a vehicle. I'm sorry.
And no, please, because she's absolutely correct. How do we, just one second, Mr. Johnson, that's a great point. How do we fault somebody for going a certain speed if their bikes aren't equipped to judge that speed? That's an interesting question.
I was going to correct that, Sarge. I've got an electric bike. I hang with the electric bike group. Every electric bicycle I've stopped and talked to has a speedometer.
Oh, good.
But the scooters don't.
Okay, well, that helps.
A lot of the scooters and talk to them, and I haven't found one with a speedometer. So there is a problem, in that scooters don't know. But I think it's really what we're trying to get at is slow them down in mixed use areas. We can't legislate common sense, but we can tell them, if you think you're going faster than 12 miles an hour, which was surprisingly fast, right, the other day, please take it to the road. That's what we're trying to do, is get them out of the mixed. When I say mixed use, I don't mean retail. I mean pedestrians, baby strollers. Now throwing electric bikes at 25 miles an hour, that's your problem.
Talking about downtown Minutemen.
Take the electric bike onto the street if you want to go faster than 12 miles an hour.
You're going to get no disagreement from us on, or from me anyway, on making the sidewalks safer in congested areas. I completely agree. There's a couple things that can be done with that. This is one of them. I support that 100%. The question to me originally was, can we judge the speed? We can, correct?
Yes.
We can judge the speed. So that is doable.
You
Now,
can judge or actually determine if
Well-
you needed to or wanted to.
I don't think we could determine, well, I mean,
With
yes, I'm sorry, that's what
radar.
I mean. Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Sasso. We can point a radar gun at that moving object and determine what that speed's gonna be. We can absolutely do that.
But you can also,
We can
Judge.
visually estimate,
right,
but when we get trained on radar detection and get certified in all those things, we're not visually estimating 12-mile-an-hour bicycles. We're visually estimating 40, 50, 60-mile-an-hour cars.
Right,
So
yeah.
if they, still do it that way. So the answer to your question is yes, we can do it. I just want you guys to understand what that would entail. I mean, it would literally entail somebody just like you're catching somebody running radar, like on I-95, or standing out on a sidewalk at Minuteman and Atlantic, and we're just kind of sitting there and, hey, you're going, whatever mile an hour over. We decide, we don't want to take away the officer's discretion at that point. We don't want to make it to where 12.1 miles an hour, they're obligated to pull the person over, right? I mean, we don't have any sort of hard, fast rule on that as it relates to our vehicles. Yes, sir.
so, and this is why and don't take me wrong, I'm not getting on anybody, but this is kind of why I think I really would have liked to have had you guys here earlier as we started this. Let me ask a dumb question. Is there between staff and you all, is there a way that maybe we can find out some of these other Florida communities that have done these things already and are ahead of us and see how their enforcement is working or not working, so maybe we don't have to reinvent the wheel?
So,
We already had several codes that we reviewed in the last 2 meetings. That was the codes for several, I think it was about 6 different communities and
Right.
what they have done.
But I'm wondering how the
How do they enforce it,
enforcement
though?
went. In other words,
I don't
could our force talk to their force and say, hey, guys, how's this working? Or gals, sorry, how is this working or not working?
Did any of them have, I don't recall anyone having a speed limit.
I know Key West
No,
does.
there's, Key West is 15.
Yeah.
So I know Portland, that's where I brought up the 12 miles an hour. They've got a cute little yield sign that shows a wheeled thing with a lightning strike, yields to, and then it's a wheeled thing, yields to, and then it's a pedestrian. And then speed limit,
the hierarchy.
yeah.
I got
And
you.
then it was, this happened to be along a boardwalk in Portland, and they had 12 miles an hour, which is where I got so hung up on it.
And we could still
I-
enact these things, but meanwhile, get a little help with the research and maybe tweak it if we need to, or at least you all know how to better work it. And I don't think we're expecting you all to be out there every day with a speed gun, but at the same time, maybe
You're not.
on the weekends, sometimes when we know it's going to be busy, have our walking patrols just gently reminding some of the knuckleheads that, hey,
Yeah.
there's laws now, you got to slow down and.
We're never going to turn down another enforcement tool, right? And I look at this as a positive, right? This is just another opportunity, like you said, for us to make a positive interaction with somebody, which is how our beach rangers started, right? They didn't start off being just code enforcement. They started off being ambassadors for the city. Hey, please take your glass off the beach, right? Please slow down. We're not looking to write tickets on all these violators. I completely agree with that. As it relates to not reinventing the wheel, anybody who knows me knows that I've said that 4 times today. I'm very big on, very rarely do we come up with these novel ideas. They've already been tried. People already have these things worked out at different agencies, and we'd be happy to do a PAC request, which is a request for all the accredited agencies in the state, and we can see who or what they've done, pluses and minuses, likes, dislikes. Yes, Mr. Lewis.
Wes, this is not a direct enforcement thing, but it's just from my own personal observation. Part of this will be signage throughout the city so that the riders can see a posted speed limit for a sidewalk. In the street, you follow the rules of the street. On the sidewalk is where the problem comes in. But I've seen in my lifetime, here in Cocoa Beach and everywhere, there's speed limits on every road in America. And I haven't seen anybody that adheres to a speed limit. You have to have a posted speed limit, but I've not found driving habits change by having a posted speed limit. But my point that I'm trying to make is what I do think I've seen is when those digital signs are on the side of the road, like when you come up from Merritt Island back to Cocoa Beach on 520, right at the Sunset Grill, there's
Yes,
a
sir.
digital sign. That's a large sign, maybe they can come in smaller sizes, but I found driving habits, when I'm in a pack of cars and you come into that, I notice people slow down. When there's a speed limit 35, people don't even see that. It's like dogs on the beach. People take their dog, there's a sign right there, no dogs on this beach. They walk right through, they don't look at it, it means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But the digital signs seem like it actually changes behavior. Now, that's not a direct enforcement thing, but I think it's better than a static sign.
I agree with you. It's funny, we were actually in a strategic plan meeting earlier today with Tanja's group and then with the fire department, getting ready for our next part of this process. And one of the implementations that we would like to do is bring forth more signage and electric signage and notifications out to the public and actual messaging. And we talked about using the schools in that as well. I'm good with that. I just don't want to put us in a position where it's enforced, as long as it's like, hey, it's just a tool for us to use, right? It just needs to be a tool for us to use. And if there is an accident, I obviously, being in our positions, the first thing I worry about is, well, how come the police weren't there running radar on this sidewalk at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? You know what I mean? Well, it's because we were out on 4 other traffic accidents on a Saturday. So, again, I'm never going to turn down a tool to use. And I think that allowing us an opportunity to get with Key West or to get with other agencies and say, hey, what worked, what didn't work, I don't think that's ever a bad thing because we're only just more educated for it.
No,
Are
because
y'all
there's
good with
smart-
that?
Yeah, there's smart people in other towns, and
Yes.
maybe they've come up
Yeah.
with something novel.
Okay. And so
we can certainly
can
do that.
put these things into effect while they're doing that, and then, a month from now or 2 months or whatever, we can find out if there's something else we need to actually do or the commission needs to do. But meanwhile, that may be tools that'll help you all, just make everybody safer. That's the main objective.
We've
Tanja?
worked, no, go ahead, I'm sorry, sir.
Tanja, go ahead. She had her hand up, sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to also speak to the fact that once you put something in effect and you talk about, and I know we've had these conversations before, Wes, where you have an ordinance in place, and then how do you, so you have a violator, now you have a violator of this ordinance. And so what type of offense is it? Is it a criminal offense? Is it a civil offense? How do you, how do you take it past that?
I think that's way up here at the 60,000 foot level.
Yeah.
Yes and no. She's right. Yeah, something to think about. She's right. So whenever we do an ordinance violation now, right, like a noise. You guys heard of noise violations? We've had a couple of them.
We have a noise ordinance?
Yeah. So one of the complicating factors with the noise ordinance, as it's currently written, is that we have to have buy-in from the state attorney's office to make it a criminal offense. Okay. Otherwise, they're the gatekeepers that make it criminal. If they don't open the gate and say we can walk through that door of charging somebody, then it's just a useless.
Right.
It's just
And
a useless.
they're not
process.
likely to do it unless it's pretty hardcore issue.
And as we're talking about this, it's nothing for us at times to try and get the buy-in of the state attorney's office as well on some of this stuff. Even though they don't really deal in our code, we could certainly present them with a draft of something and say, hey, what do you think about this?
Does that apply to like speeding tickets though?
Speeding tickets are not civil. They're going to be criminal. They're actually, I'm talking about city ordinances. Okay. So, if we write an ordinance violation for noise, okay, because I'm assuming that that's what these would be, is ordinance violations. Okay.
Yeah, like an open container or
Correct.
Violating the golf cart law
That's
right now.
correct, because it's
Okay.
not a violation of state statute, right? We're not violating state statute.
Okay. Yeah,
So because
yeah,
we're not
yeah.
violating state statute, and jump in if I'm wrong in any of these
No,
points.
No, yeah.
So
you're right.
it's going to be ordinance violations. And if it's ordinance violations, we have to have the state attorney on board should we need to go that route, right? So somebody doesn't want to comply. What if they don't want to sign it? No, I'm not signing. Well, yes, you are. And then a fight ensues, and then the person goes to jail. That happens. That happens a lot. So, these are just kind of things to kind of think about.
So these are some of the things, because they're so new,
Right.
that I would imagine other communities have already faced or are going through. So maybe that can be the feedback that can help us make those decisions on not only what regulations we do, but how do we actually enforce them.
There's no downside to that. And if I may, John, just one more thing is, in the meantime, Karen is great at doing PIO stuff. Jackie's great at doing PIO stuff. We could start an awareness campaign soon, whenever you guys are in the commission and the city manager are comfortable with it. At least like, hey, this is coming. And then once it becomes codified, however you and the commission decide to actually do it, then we give them a little more notice, and then there's just no excuses.
Right.
But we can start the awareness campaign soon, whenever you guys.
And I
the
think
commission
that's a
feel
great idea, because a lot of what I think we all see is, I noticed the other day, because I've been kind of looking more and paying more attention. I assume we all are now.
Mm-hmm.
And I see more of the kids on electric bikes after school than I actually see on regular bikes now.
Yeah.
And even though they're coming down the sidewalk on Minutemen, when they get in the neighborhoods, they're riding in the streets.
Yes,
So
sir.
I think the immediate thing is to start that education program for those kids' safety about what they can and can't do riding those scooters or bikes on the streets in the neighborhoods while we're working on these other things.
And honestly, it would help our folks brush up on that too before, because they're working accidents and thefts and burglaries right now. They haven't, been up to date on their scooter law, right? So it's important that we give our folks some time to digest it and
Right.
swallow it as well, or at least plant that flag so they can go back to it. John, I'm sorry, what were you?
No, I just wanted to tag on to what Tony's saying. I think 2 points. I would recommend that in the initial rollout, if the rollout is 12 months, and then there's an evaluation, if that's what it is a 12-month rollout, maybe we just do warnings only. It's new to the community. It's going to take months before it really permeates through the community. 3-4 months down the road, people won't even know about it yet. So if let it say it takes a year, and then we'll evaluate. But maybe just do warnings only, because the interest here is not to try to give people tickets. It's
Right,
to try to
right.
change behavior.
Exactly.
And maybe by giving a person the benefit of the doubt, by giving them a warning, which you walk away scot-free, but you've been informed, maybe that will change the behavior. And that's all we want. We don't want the $50, $100 fine. We just want to change behavior. So I'm going to recommend maybe it's
And I would,
warnings only.
yeah, and I'll be happy to second that, with one exception, that when these folks are out there and they get that drunk knucklehead riding his bike at 30 miles an hour,
That's
leaving
an
Beach
exception.
Shack, they can go ahead and do whatever they got to do.
I was going to say that. So the way to fix that is just, we can certainly on our end make that a warning is the preferred method, and that's the safer way to go from an enforcement
That should not
standpoint.
come from the task force. That
Yeah.
should be their decision of,
Yeah.
we're not going to write a
And
whole
I
bunch of
think we're
stupid
all on the
tickets.
same
Yeah.
page, but make sure they've got the flexibility to do what they need to do.
Yeah,
I respect what you're saying, John, and you're correct. We're in the business of gaining compliance. We're not in the business of taking people to jail. We honestly don't have the time to do that, right? So I just don't want to handcuff them by saying absolutely no. I just want to say preferred, right?
Okay.
The
Well,
preferred.
I think that's a good
I mean,
idea.
yeah, you got to warn somebody, assholes up on them. Some people need to be arrested.
Yeah,
So we let them decide how to, you say compliance.
right, and
We can push that down from us, right?
Yeah.
That, what your wishes are at that point.
yeah.
I really don't think that needs to come.
Yeah, and the
from-
worst case scenario is, unfortunately, and I get it, because I know when we were researching this for drinking on the beach issues, you're talking about 2 or 3 hours, a couple of cops off the road when you most need them. So they're going to use good judgment, and warn people, give them a tongue lashing or whatever.
Well, that's why I suggested, I had second point, is I really think the key to this is awareness. Whatever we can do through the school system, through the rental companies, through CBNNs, every means that we have to communicate. I think that's the key to this.
Yes.
Do media. We could
Because
do media for sure.
thinking that
Yeah.
Wes and the officers on the street are gonna be sitting there with a radar gun catching violators is just not realistic. And maybe it'll happen once. It's like the data that was presented by Tanja a few weeks ago. In the last 3 years, there's been 5 reported incidents. Every one of us has seen so many issues in
Yeah.
town. We're not here. we're not-
Non-reported
if,
incidents.
if that was a legitimate number, then we wouldn't even be here.
Right.
We're here because it's not an accurate number. Now, I know it's accurate because that's all that's been reported.
I agree
But
with you.
it's not indicative of what's happening on the streets of Cocoa Beach. And I'm just trying to say, I don't think Wes and his officers are gonna be actually actively enforcing this. I think it's awareness, and maybe once in a while you'll catch somebody doing something
Yeah.
wrong. But you focus on awareness with 99% of your resources, because you wanna change behavior voluntarily, and the
Right.
police are not gonna be sitting on Minuteman with a radar gun.
Right, but a couple, I would add, and I always, working downtown, I always love seeing when y'all are doing walking patrols down there on those busy weekends. Just this past weekend, we had that big reggae fest, and, your guys were there, and I got to tell you, working that weekend just gave me a nice sense of comfort knowing that y'all were down there, because it was crazy busy. And, and that helps a little bit to know that y'all are around sometimes, and I think just
Here from my house.
seeing that will trigger folks to slow down, be safer.
Yes, sir.
Or if they're not, just having a conversation.
And we can visually estimate. If we can visually estimate 50, we can probably visually estimate 12. I don't know. We have to figure that out. John, did you have something else, or did I? Was that your second one?
Yeah, that was my second.
Okay.
And Tanja, you,
So, I'm trying to get down to what we're potentially recommending to the commission.
yes,
So,
yes.
we started off with public awareness. That's our number one thing that we want to recommend. And then the second one was, creating an ordinance where we would have some speed limitation.
Right, our
And maybe a
recommendation was
fine.
12.
Since it's not gonna be a criminal activity, maybe it'll be some type of fine. I don't know how we do that with children.
Do it the same way, or we don't. I mean, that's the thing, that's where the kind of gray area is, right?
Right, and that's the research part, I think, to find out what other folks are doing, and who knows, maybe when y'all start talking, you can,
It won't take long.
yeah.
It'll
build ideas.
all kind of come together. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
John.
no, so,
But that was 12 miles an hour, just because we
12 miles
did
an hour.
agree on that, especially after that.
you guys wanna give a statement what you think is
Well,
our
she's
recommendation?
going to try to get us back on track again in a minute, but in the
Yeah.
meantime, do y'all ever hear from the SROs? Is there a problem with kids getting to school and the conflict between fast bikes and slow walkers?
I will say that I have not, Major. Major has not, Sergeant. Sergeant
Okay,
has
so
not.
I think the kids are they're more tolerant of it. I mean, you
I
don't
think
see
so,
any
too.
60-year-olds at the skate park because it just starts to hurt after a while. But I think with maturity and more cautious, it bugs me when somebody scoots by at elbow length at
Look at me
25
when you say
miles an hour.
maturity.
What's that? Well, I'll just say brittle bones, not maturity, so.
Is the beach in your mix anywhere or not?
We haven't really discussed it.
They're not gonna be allowed on the beach. I thought that's what Kelsey talked about.
No, I never said they wouldn't be allowed on the beach. I mean, you can't drive like your ATV on the beach, but e-bikes have traditionally been allowed on the beach.
That's why the original wording we picked up was in, and I'll say mixed use, but that wasn't the word we came up with.
You
The Minuteman
said-
bike path,
You said areas of shared use by bikes and pedestrians.
because I specifically wanted to include the beach, and I know, I've seen it, there has been a problem with people on one wheel, so I just looked it up, a one wheel will go 22 miles an hour.
Yeah.
If you're zipping that through the crowded Minutemen area,
That's a problem.
you need
and I
somebody
see
to
that.
address it, and you guys, like you say, there's your tool. Hey, hold on a minute.
It
I
just-
want to tell
yeah.
you the speed limit on the beach is 12 miles an hour. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, but that one, just like the sergeant said, actually does not have a speedometer. Those one wheels don't.
And just to be clear, if I may, scooters and e-bikes are two totally different things. So let's not confuse the terms. A scooter, which I think is what most of the kids are using because they're cheaper and more affordable, those are different than an e-bike as defined by the state of Florida. So a scooter is something that does not have a seat, where an e-bike has a seat and can be assisted by pedaling. So when we start defining what we're going to enforce, are we targeting specifically e-bikes? Because the scooters go
We've
quite
been-
fast as well.
In our conversations, we've been inclusive of all electric
No,
to
all
one and two wheel
Micro
vehicles.
mobility device.
I said all-wheeled vehicles because I brought up the fact that I was driving next to a guy on an unpowered bicycle that was going 37 miles an hour. He knew to be on the road. He knew that he was a hazard to pedestrians. But we weren't separating e-bikes, scooters, one-wheels.
Right.
We just said, if you're in these areas, hey, bring the horse to town, but don't go over 12 miles an hour.
But then we get into the fact where they don't have the capability of knowing their speed.
I think it
And maybe that's where
allows
that-
them to use common sense. They realize I'm going 22 and I was told I should only go be 12. It's,
Then they can't argue with you that they weren't speeding, see?
Maybe,
yeah, you win that argument because you got the instrument. It's like me on my boat, excuse me.
No.
I don't have a speedometer on my boat. It's incumbent upon me to use my technology, whatever, to not break the law. So if they choose to ride, what's
Yeah.
that?
I see your point.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
we didn't want anybody going more than 12 miles an hour in an area where you could impact a pedestrian. That was our point.
So with our statement, I'm going back to our statement, guys, because we have to leave in about 10 minutes and we need to open up for public comment. So unless we want to bring this back in June, I have no problem with that. We need to come up with our
I
statement.
think we're good to go. I think basically, like I started, unless you guys want to change anything, we're talking about all-wheel vehicles, e-bikes, et cetera.
all micro mobility devices.
Yes, and then we're talking about a speed limit of 12 on the sidewalks. Pedestrians have the right-of-way, audible signal for passing on the left.
I don't think we need to codify the audible signal and all that. Is that going to be part of the learning thing? You want that in a city ordinance?
I
A lot
do,
of them did, a lot of the ones that we saw.
because
from
I've had
Tanya, it's
people
actually-
come up to me, it's just scared the living crap
Yeah.
out of me, because they didn't, they're quiet, they didn't say anything, and they're like flying by, and like, holy crap.
Putting the audible in an ordinance is not gonna make somebody give you an audible, but the
No.
awareness portion of this
Exactly,
campaign will.
to-
But I would vote that it should be in
A
there.
lot of what we're doing is trying to
common
teach
sense.
people, you know what, it's like give them a dope slap, be considerate,
Audible is just, hey, look out. You
Yeah.
don't have to have a tool for audible.
Passing on the left.
yeah, audible signal, it could be a beeper, it could be anything,
could
but
be a
something to
bell.
let people know.
Wes, 12 miles an hour, we've talked about how that's not measurable, hard to enforce, whatever. Can we put language in there, maybe Tanja, or safe speed for the conditions where you're at? Now, safe, that's gonna be subjective. It's subjective, but it's, okay, nobody can measure 12. Okay, so we have this benchmark, but nobody can measure 12.
No, he didn't say he couldn't. He said he could.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but the people on the device don't know they're doing 12 because there might not be a speedometer on a
This
scooter.
is where I think their research is gonna answer those questions.
I get you, but I want to introduce this, you can shoot it down if you'd like. Or safe speed with some language. Now, again, what does that mean?
Listen,
It's subjective, but.
I like subjectivity until I don't, until it works out of my favor, right? I only, no, can't.
Do you,
And let me just explain why, if I can, because, what Jackie thinks is safe is not what I think is safe.
I understand, that's the problem.
I know you do, and I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to express it in such a way that in order to enforce it equitably, which is what we're trying to do, we have to have some sort of standard to delineate by. Either you are violating, thus you can be stopped, or you are not violating and we have no right to stop you.
and would that apply to reckless driving as well, or not?
Yeah, reckless is a little more subjective, but traditionally with reckless driving in state statute, it has to be reckless, willful, and wanton disregard for public safety or whatever it is. But that's defined by case law very, very clearly, right? This is not defined. What is reckless on an e-bike? What is reckless on a one-wheel? What is reckless on, and I'm not saying that over time we can't come up with these definitions, but I'm just talking to the subjectivity, at least on the initial enforcement or.
I'd like to include reckless if you all agree, or if you don't, just say, don't put it in, but and to cover kind of what you're talking about, John, is, there's a term that people are more familiar with, it's already in statute, and maybe it applies, maybe it doesn't, but they could find out.
I like that, but the other thing, I think in the marine world, maybe you could help me, in the marine world, isn't there something that says blah, 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 or at a safe speed? There's something in the marine world with boating where there's language.
I'm sure there
but
is.
It boils down to safe speed, so it's going to be up to the captain who's got his hand on the wheel and the throttle. What is the safe speed for these conditions? I'm pretty sure in the marine world that exists.
So I would say this, and Sergeant's correct. Hierarchy, right? We have careless driving, which is not as bad, operating in an unsafe manner, right? And that's kind of subjective, but that's also defined by case law. Okay, over and over and over and over and over again. Everybody takes these cases to court. They know what's careless and what's not. And then under that, you have reckless driving, which is way worse.
So careless might be better and give you more flexibility.
So what I would suggest, and I don't know, but we're kind of flying blind because I don't know what other agencies use. And so I want to provide perspective from our department as we see it right now. But I really would like to be more educated on what some of the other departments that I really respect.
So why don't we do this, Hanja? Why don't we put in what we already know and what we've agreed on, and then let the cops go do whatever research. They can come back and tweak it with additional items that will help them do the job.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Whatever you guys choose,
I like
we'll
that.
do.
I like that idea.
Okay, and we can let you know what we come up with, certainly.
let
However
us
you guys
know,
want to do
but
it. If you want to
do
do it in June or whatever, but
No, I think we could have it ready. I'll have everything written
Okay.
up before June. Send it out like we talked about. We look at everything. Maybe we'll have some feedback from West by then. And then if we want to come back and meet in June after we get that feedback and I have my language prepared, we'll meet in June. If not, we'll take it to the first June city commission meeting.
So you guys aren't all going to be on vacation right the week after Memorial Weekend?
crime doesn't rest, and neither do we.
As a matter of fact, it's probably going to get a little bit
So,
more.
any other questions for us that I can answer for you folks or the sergeant?
No, that's a great help.
Do you all perceive e-bike, well, it's a loaded question because I'm gonna, do you guys perceive what you see on e-bikes as a public safety issue?
I do, absolutely.
Sarge?
I see the scooters as more of a
Okay, you're right. I said e-bike, but I didn't
Yeah,
mean
we
E-things.
The,
Yeah.
the e-bikes are usually operated by somebody a little bit more mature and a little
that's
bit
me.
more of a different
Usually.
mindset than the scooters. Because scooters are left at the corners and you can scan it on your phone, and those are the vacationers are using and the
Right.
children are using, and those are the ones that are less educated on how to use them properly or safely. So those are really, and the one wheels are starting to become a big problem on the beach as well. So I think e-bikes is the lesser of the category.
and
of
back in the
problems.
neighborhoods too.
Oh, sure.
It was interesting. It was the one wheels on the beach was the first thing that somebody brought up to me when I started talking about this. The kids that didn't want to be addressed would go by and spray sand on people. They're too close, stuff like that. And then realizing they go 22 miles an hour, and you all saw how fast we lined everybody up, and I came by at different speeds. 20 miles an hour for me on an e-bike is way too fast.
That's screaming.
Yeah, I'm a resident and I see it out on the beach. I have seen it, so
Yeah.
I completely agree. It's just the nailing it down part that we
Okay,
just
so
need to-
taking on something is, I mean, when I heard there was no conflict, that the SROs don't perceive a problem, but little kids don't mind each other speeding by each other and running into each other. And I mean, my son got hit by a car once on the way to work and jumped up and ran to school because he thought he was going to get in trouble. I mean, that's how kids think.
Yeah, the SROs wouldn't see him unless the accident happened at the school.
Right, because they're not,
So
probably not gonna come
You
up
got the
saying.
whole way down Minuteman that there's no SROs down there. So they probably wouldn't have it reported anyway.
Okay, so it wouldn't be like word of mouth, somebody got hit on the way to, did you hear
Maybe,
about it?
maybe not, but they wouldn't report that back to us, certainly. They would just be like, okay, somebody got hit. But we can certainly use the SROs as a resource.
Right, so
Yep.
Tanja, let me just jump in. Do you have what you need?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel that I have a good amount of information to put this together and present to the commission. at
Okay,
this point.
do you all have any other questions for the police?
Yeah, no, but the audible and passing on the left are recommended. We can't mandate that people pass on the left because,
No.
Hey, thank you very much, gentlemen.
all right, cheers, thanks a lot.
Okay.
That can be, that's fine, and then maybe when they come back with research, they'll be
Thanks,
able to
Wes.
answer that a little more clearly. Tanja, with that, unless you have something else, we should probably open it up to public comment.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. We're gonna open it up to public comment at this time.
It'd be preferable to come up, because I think they're recording. Thank you.
Yep, also the usual.
And Tanja, you get the last word, so.
KP Finco, 190 Seminole Lane. You guys have a really tough job on your hands, so hey, congrats on what you're doing. A couple of things. I come from a different country. The only way to police bicycle and pedestrians, in my opinion, is with bicycle and pedestrian police. So in Berlin, in Amsterdam, wherever you see a lot of bicycles, you see police on bicycles. And they are way less intimidating than a car chasing you down, and they'll get you. These guys will get you. They have calves this size, they'll get you. So if we have a chance that we have maybe our bicycle or our motorcycle police guy, maybe you put him on the street on a bike a couple of times a month or so. I would very much also totally agree with don't make it a finable thing, make it an educational thing, pass out like, hey, you did something wrong and here's a trifold, take it home, learn from it. Unless, of course, there is the occasional idiot that drives A1A in the wrong direction and runs a red light on a bike, where you're going to say, well, hang on a second here, you're violating regular laws to begin with. So that would be kind of like something to think about. Totally educational, no fines, unless somebody is totally crazy. Hand out pamphlets, put them in the Cocoa Beach Explorer and wherever you can have them, hand them out at the school. It should be an educational thing. We're going to teach them to have common sense. And like I said, if the police is out there on a bicycle and can stop you and say, hey, you've been crazy, here's a pamphlet, this is what you should be doing, that would probably be better.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Major, we want to see you out on a bike pretty soon.
Any more public comments? Okay, with that, I'm gonna close the meeting.
Can I just say before we do that, what a pleasure it was to work with everybody. What a good team. So
Yes.
thank you.
I agree.
Thank you.
Different